the place for the Mexican people is not in the United States. The place for them is in Mexico. They're fleeing terrible conditions, and I have to blame a lot of the poverty and the plight of why Mexicans are coming into this country on NAFTA again, because NAFTA allowed so many of U.S. big agribusiness, the agri corporations, to go down there, take over huge swaths of land, and displace millions and millions of Mexicans so they could no longer make a living. So they're forced to migrate north into the U.S. And it's really the law of unintended consequences. And here we are, we're stuck with these people. They're a burden on our system. They're destroying our schools. They're overcrowding our hospitals. They're overcrowding our prisons. They contribute nothing to the system, and they need to go home. So I look at Obama, I look at Romney, and both of them are soft stepping around this issue because they're the emerging demographic. They don't need to be the emerging demographic. They need to be repatriated to their own country. Reagan screwed this country over whenever he signed that first amnesty. And that amnesty was supposed to be for only 800,000 people, but 3.6 million people took advantage of it. And that set a precedent. I prefer the Eisenhower model, which Eisenhower had 1,200 immigration agents, and those 1,200 managed to deport 1.4 million illegal aliens who were in the country back in 1957 and send them home. And if it can be done by one, it can be done by another. We just simply have to have the political will to do it. The people of the United States have the political will, but the corporations like the cheap labor. They don't care about the American worker unless he's willing to work for the same or less than a Mexican will. And so that's all they care about is how do you get cheap labor. They don't care about the American people. They don't care about the country. They don't have a sense of nationalism, a sense of pride in their country. All they care about is the bottom line, the profit in their own pocket. And I think that's the wrong way to be. And I don't want to sound like I'm a socialist or some kind of egalitarian, because I'm not. I believe in enlightened self-interest. But I also think that if we're going to be a socialist country, that there's better models to follow than the communist model.
Well, communism takes away personal responsibility and private ownership. So if we were to attempt to impoverish the United States by sucking up all the wealth, buying out all the mortgages, I think we're well on our way to a socialist dictatorship.
Well, I absolutely agree with that. And I think that if we do nothing now, we're going to have to do a lot more later. And I will again refer people to what's going on in Greece, what's going on in Spain. And if you look at that, look at the entire Arab Spring, all of that. This is what people do when they're without hope and have nothing but despair to look forward to. They have nothing left to lose. And do we want that in this country? I certainly don't. I would like to see us take an intelligent approach to it, a proactive approach to it, address these issues head on, call them out, and be able to deal with them, in a stand-up, straightforward manner. Because if we don't, we're going to look at massive, massive civil unrest in this country, and that's when they're going to really implement the police state on the American people. And it's going to get ugly, folks, and there's going to be blood in the streets. I hate to say it, but this is my greatest fear right now.
There already is blood in the streets. Is there not? Aren't there people being murdered left, right and centre who are exposing all manners of corruption in the United States and being staged as suicides, and people being kettled in protests, and drones flying everywhere, millions of rounds of hollow point ammunition being ordered by the police departments, tens of thousands of dollars per department on new Glocks and goodness knows what else kind of SWAT team gear when they've had their own same revolver for the last 25 years and have never used it.
Well, that's what's happening, and these things are being funded by the federal government through grants from the Department of Homeland Security. And like I stated earlier, the current Secretary of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano, hired Eric Mueller, who was head of the Stasi under East Germany, to help her structure her department. And that's what the American people are going to be facing here very, very soon. We're going to have a East German style police state. And that is an appalling state of affairs for me. I mean, I was born in the mid 50s, and I grew up with, Andy of Mayberry, where, the image of law enforcement was that of a peace officer, not that of a brutal thug. A brutal thug here to enforce laws that are neither fair nor wanted. And all of these things are problems, and we need to open our eyes up. We need to talk to our friends, talk to our neighbors, and we need to do something about it. And what that something is going to take. It's going to have a different form for every person, but every person has to engage in some form of resistance to this, because if you don't do it now, you're going to have to do it later.
Now, it's about ownership and caretaking, and I was just thinking about this. In New Zealand, we've got these two distinct cultures, or rather one of them's kind of being suppressed by the other, but they've got the Western culture that favours ownership, and you've got the native Māori culture which favours caretaking of the land rather than owning it. And I think that the key to both of those societies, when they work well, like for instance, every time somebody's bought a lake here in New Zealand, it's gone to crap. But every time a Māori tribe has been given caretaking authority over a lake, it has been kept absolutely pristine. The disconnect I feel here is a lack of responsibility to the land, to your country, and to your people. And it is responsibility, not ownership in itself, that is the main thing here that America has had destroyed. Because when you take away people's, safety nets, they suddenly have that, oh my God, I got a fire under my ass, I need to change something. But if you can easily go down to the unemployment office, if you can easily blame the gays, if you can easily blame the immigrants, if you can easily blame everybody else for problems that you are allowing to happen, you can sit there forever, safe in the knowledge that things can go all to hell around you, and you are not to blame. How freaking stupid and irresponsible can we get? Wake up, everybody. You listen to The Vinny Eastwood Show. We'll be right back after the break at thevinnyeastwoodshow.com and AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Mike Harris is my guest.
Do you realise every day we are being put under constant stress from wireless radiation? What's worse is that you don't even know that it's happening. It puts as much stress on our body as if we had a constant viral infection, draining our energy and sapping our strength, or just making us irritable and fatigued. These wireless fields are being emitted from computers, microwaves, mobile phones, power lines, and any electrical appliance. Now there is a solution. A group of research engineers in New Zealand have come up with an active shielding device that shields you from wireless radiation at a cellular level. Blue Shield comes in 3 models, a household, portable, and USB that plugs into any computer. The great thing about Blue Shield is it is very affordable and guaranteed to last. A one-off purchase will see you being protected for years to come. Visit AmericanFreedomRadio.com and click on the Blue Shield banner. Blue Shield, brought to you by theVinnyEastwoodShow.com.
If you take an active interest in maintaining the optimum health and well-being of yourself and your family, the New Zealand Journal of Natural Medicine is the magazine you've been waiting for. Having taken Australia and New Zealand by storm, the New Zealand Journal of Natural Medicine is now available in the UK and Europe. Visit www.nznaturalmed.co.uk or call 01626 337 531 to order your copy now.
Welcome
You
back,
want to know what
ladies
it's
and
like?
gentlemen,
You can
to the
experience
Vinny
going
Eastwood
to
Show,
very
broadcasting live from the fabulously fluoridated capital of Auckland, New Zealand, the island-chained nation in the sunny slave South Pacific. Fukushima irradiated too, and everybody got a part-time job as an incandescent light bulb. My very special guest is Mike Harris from Republic Broadcasting. And here was the other thing. The other side to the illegal immigration story. One is how bad it is for the US economy and the US worker and all of these economic ramifications and social changes that happen. And the other thing is, why are they fleeing Mexico in such massive numbers? What the hell is so bad going on in Mexico that they feel that the United States is better? And the answer is huge corruption, massive drug cartels all over the place, violence, disorder, etc., etc. I mean, most people are just living out their lives happily, but there's a lot more of an overt corruption going on there. Like you say, New Zealand is corrupt, and I can back up the evidence for that ad infinitum. But you can't bribe a New Zealand police officer on the street like you can in Mexico. Even though our corruption's maybe just as bad, there's this veneer, okay, that is over the top, like a mask on the Phantom of the Opera, that prevents you from seeing the real dark underbelly. Sometimes in America and New Zealand, these other Western countries or alleged first world countries or whatever, whereas in Mexico it's far more overt. And I was wondering, do you know actually any more details on that, Mike, about the plight of the poor Mexicans?
Well, I can give you a lot of things, but let me give you a little background first on the corruption issue. And this is something you can notice globally, and it goes back to colonialism. Any place where the Brits colonized usually has a nice veneer of being a lawful place to be. It really is. You look at Singapore, you look at Australia, look at New Zealand, look at the US, Canada, any place where Britain had a major role in the colonization was pretty good. Now you look at where Spain colonized, Mexico, South America, the Philippines. All of these places are the most corrupt cesspools you ever wanted to think of in your entire life. And I can't explain it, but there must be some cultural thing that the Spaniards did back in colonial days, because everywhere they set the Spanish flag down and claimed this for king and queen of Spain has turned out in our century to be among the most corrupt places on earth. That's one issue. The other thing, and I wrote an article on Veterans today about this, it's called In Defense of the Mexican People. Because I wrote a previous article earlier about how our foreign policy with Mexico was a failed policy and needs to be revisited. Then I came back with one that says, in defense of the Mexican people, NAFTA had such a devastating effect on rural agriculture in Mexico that it really literally drove the people off of the land. And so that's why we have entire towns in Mexico that there's no men left. They've all left to come up north to go to work because they couldn't feed their families. Now, do I have compassion for them? Yes, I do. But I also have to say, you're not going to solve your problems hiding behind me. You have to go back to Mexico and you have to solve your own problems down there. And you look at it, we have 50 million illegal aliens in this country right now living here, taking up residence, essentially squatting in the U.S. With no legal right to be here. Can you imagine? Mexico has 113 million people. If those 50 million Mexicans would go back to Mexico en masse and demand structural change in how their governments are run, do you think they'd get it?
Yeah, they would.
Do you think they'd have an effect on their government? See,
everything.
That's what one of our propaganda initiatives has to be, is to inspire the Mexican people to go back home to they're nationalistic, they're patriotic, they love their people, they love their country. We have to convince them that it's possible for them to go back to Mexico and make the changes they want to see in their own government.
Hey, and
to
Also, there have been many revolutions throughout history that have been fostered and supported by neighbouring countries that are free, that help them to be free, whether that be supplying intelligence or propaganda support or things of that nature, So even if they went back all en masse, they still wouldn't be alone, because whenever you settle anywhere, you always plant roots, and you will have friends, family, confidants, contacts, etc. that may in turn turn into some form of a supply line for your revolution, as it were.
Well, it appears that our Department of Justice through the BATF is arming the wrong people when they're arming the drug cartels. What do you think?
I think so. I think you should arm the average Mexican citizen, and as happens in every single time that you arm the citizenry, crime rates drop dramatically, because criminals love unarmed victims.
Well, Mexico has some of the most stringent and draconian drug laws in North America. And if you're caught in possession of a weapon there, you can be imprisoned and or executed for it, depending on what your intent is. But I guess if you're a drug cartel big shot, and you can buy your way out of it, I guess that works too.